Vinny. So kind of what this is all about is we're just going to go through some hazard stuff. Now the idea is that Bill 6 is coming, whether you like it or not. And if you have any questions about that, I can try to help you through the process. There's no set definition how Bill 6 is going to go, but we have a pretty good idea how it usually flows with this kind of stuff. So as we go through this, I'm going to give you a little we're going to do a little fire extinguisher demonstration too. The reason is, if you want to pull the triggers, we're actually going to make you put the fires out. And we did that because the girl yesterday got burnt, an 8-year-old lady. She was driving a tractor home, and she burned alive. I don't know the details and what happened, but we figured, well, you know, a little black smoke's always good to attract people too. So that's kind of why we did it for her. So we're going to come over here, follow me on over, and we'll kind of go through some stuff here. So here's my first question, you guys. Now, you've been farming for how long? All your life?
Yeah, I guess so.
All your life too?
Yep.
All your life. So, you have any accidents to your farm? Just curious. None of my business. I'm just curious. Fingers.
No, still got them all.
You got them all. Are you farm by yourself, or a family farm, or are you a bigger family?
Yeah.
You family too, or
Yep.
you hire anybody?
No,
Is that the territory you're going to stay away from? Is that what you're thinking?
it's possible.
Is that what you're thinking about?
Yeah.
What about you? Do you hire anybody, or?
We have one.
Okay. So that this Bill 6 probably might affect you if you still go that route in the future. We don't know how that's going to work out, but here's what's going to happen probably eventually. They're not going to enforce any rules. What they're going to probably do is the next 5-10 years, they're going to try to find out what the rules will be. There's not going to be much enforcement at all. It's going to be consultation, complaints, consultation, complaints, consultation, until they find what works the best for everybody. Does that kind of make sense? And with every industry I worked with over the last 18 years, and it's about 18 years, it takes about 10 to 12 to 15 years to even come up with basic answers. Does that make sense? Of what they're going to do and what they're going to enforce. So enforcement may not happen for at least 15 or 20 years down the road. Does that make sense? Before you even see, unless you have an accident. So if you kill somebody, you put a guy in hospital for 2 days, you collapse a building, then you'd have to phone OH&S. Outside of that, you won't see much enforcement for a little while. So what I'm going to do is what they're probably going to make you guys do first. This is why I decided to go this route, just to give you a sense. Now, I'm not trying to sell anything, I'm just trying to answer questions. So they're going to make you do what they call hazard assessment. Everybody hear about hazard assessment? And make you go around your farm and just kind of document what you think is a hazard versus not. Does that kind of make sense? So I set this up for you guys, and this is what they call a hierarchy control, but I'll get back to that in a second. I just want you to look around here and see if you can find 6 things that are considered to be hazards. Just walk around this item here. Ignore the fire pit over there. Okay, so I'll give you about 5 minutes and just see if you can find 6 things here and write them down for me. I just want to go through them with you. Just 6 little things. They're here. Some are not that obvious. There's a couple that are very obvious. So what do you got? What do you come up with?
I wrote going under the truck box.
Under the box, yeah, that's the standard one.
Unshielded auger.
Unshielded auger.
Yep. Unshielded belt.
Unshielded belt. Yeah, that's good.
No catwalk in the bin.
We have a handrail up there, but I'll go with that. Sure, you betcha. No handrails. They're up there. We haven't installed them. That's good. What else?
Truck's in neutral without the brake.
Yeah, I know. Okay. And there's no chalk blocks on the tires. And you go, well, it's combination seat. Is there more? There's one I'll show you in a minute. Okay, it was a really picky one, but you got most of them. Okay.
Spray can on the seat.
Oh, I didn't see that. You got me on that one. Yeah. Is there a spray can on the seat? It's not a TDG thing. Yeah, it's okay. As a safety guy, I'd probably just ignore that and walk away from it. I'm not that anal. I can be though. If someone pays me to be, I'd be quite happy to be that way.
Well,
But
I'm thinking.
good idea.
I think you were pushing for.
Yeah, there's one more. Over here. Let's come over here. I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you one more that's a little more complicated to find. Now this is getting pretty nitpicky, but you might see something wrong with this. This area right here.
Cable frayed.
No, this cable clamp right here. You might know any phrases or anything about cable clamps. Now that's a rule that's really actually...
There's always supposed to be 2, isn't there?
Depends on the size of the cable. This one required 2 though.
Yeah.
So that's another issue. How they installed this cable clamp. This actual, it's called basically a fist grip. These are what these are. The old phrase been around for hundreds of years, like a long time since they invented these, was never saddle a dead horse. The saddle here is sitting on the dead side. This saddle actually doesn't grip the wire rope, has no ability to grip the wire rope. The U-bolt grips the wire rope.
Okay.
The saddle will actually just be on the live side and keeps the wire rope round. The key to wire rope, it must stay round. So I'm actually a crane operator. So this should have been inverted the other way. Does that make sense? So a lot of guys go, that's been there for 20 years that way. What happens over time, it wears right here, and then one day it snaps on you. Does that make sense? And this whole thing will come wear straight down on you. Now that may never happen, Then all of a sudden one day it slips. So seems like a small issue, and that's something getting nitpicky. But as 20 years goes on, that's the kind of stuff they'll be going for later. Does that make sense? Little details. And then when an accident happens, now here's the other question. When an accident does happen, let's say this thing collapsed, and OH&S come on site and looked at this, that's what they would go after, because you had an improperly rigged hoist. Does that kind of make sense? And that's where a lot of farmers might get upset, because they're going to be blamed for something they may have not have known. Does that make sense? And that's the future. So as the next 10 or 15 years goes on, they want to train farmers to understand what's right and maybe what's considered to be borderline and what should never be done. Does that kind of make sense? See, this is the most common one right here. And when I've been on the farm for years too, we ripped the guard off, and the moment we ripped it off, we never bothered putting it right back on. So come on over here for a second. So I want to talk about this for a sec. And I've done it too. I'm no better than anybody else. We all do these things. So this is what they call the hierarchy control. If you haven't seen this before, this is what they're really after in the long run of this. They're not going to change what you do. They're going to make you start rethinking about what you do. So let's go back to that cable clamp over there. What they want you to do is work your way from here down. It's called the hierarchy. It's been around for quite a few years. In most industries, this is forced down their throat. So can I eliminate that problem? So here's what they want you to think about. That problem there with that cable, that wire rope clamp, can I eliminate that? Is there any way of eliminating that cable clamp? Because the cable clamps slip, right? So getting picky, can I eliminate that? Any suggestions? Well, you can get a fitted end with a press fitting. That's getting fancy. But if the cable breaks, it's not fixable. Does that kind of make sense? So we can get a fitted end. That's elimination. We don't have the cable clamp. It shouldn't slip with a fitted end. Does that make an actual fitted end for that? What about substitution? Can we do anything to substitute that out? Hydraulics, that's another substitution. Get rid of the old school cable, but they need a pump, and that adds. So sometimes suggestions sound good, but they add more cost, or they just aren't feasible. Does that make sense? Because we'd have to have the pump running for the hydraulics to work, and that could be a problem sometimes. Does that make sense? So I may argue that, or a farmer might argue with me about that, but good answer. So can I engineer the problem out? How can I engineer that out? Engineering means a physical modification or a change of a process. What do you guys think?
Just different lift system.
Different lift system, or just flip the cable clamp over. Does that kind of make sense? And install it properly. But you'd have to replace that whole piece of cable, because once you crush it, it's lost its strength. Cable, wire rope will lose half its strength by crushing it. That's strictly half its strength. And a lot of guys go, I never broke it. Well, it's 4-to-1 ratio. So it says it can handle 1,000, it breaks at 4,000. You cut it in half, it's still good for 2,000. And that's how guys get away with it. They think, well, it's fine. But it's actually lost a lot of strength the way it's engineered. So can we administrate it out? What's administration? You know, do what that would be? Training, paperwork, you said education. So can I educate a guy? Well, I can educate, I just did you. It's educate on that's actually installed wrong. Then you have to go back and engineer the problem out. So that's another way of thinking about it. And then my last decision, can I put PPE on you guys? I'm not putting a hard hat on you. I really can't do much about PPE. What's it going to do for me? Does that kind of make sense? So what we're trying to do here is we got to find the best alternative. They don't want you working from here up. A lot of guys will start here and work their way where up. So they have to put a hard hat on, or put some gloves on. Okay. The first thought should be what? Eliminate, and then engineer and administrate. It's like this guard down here. How do we stop this problem? We put an actual guard on there. Does that make sense? Now I just talked to another farmer and he said, well, guards plug up all the time because they make them way too small. But he said, well, if I stick it in my bin, it won't fit in my bin. Okay. Well, you can take it off, go in the bin, because you're not near it anyways. If you're not near the moving part, you don't have to guard it. Does that kind of make sense? So if you take the end off and slip it in the bin, and you never go inside the bin, you don't have to put the guard on there. See, and that's what I'm trying to help guys with, just understanding that you don't have to change the whole world. You just have to maybe modify a few things and alter a few things just to start the process. Does that make sense? And then your kids will probably do a lot more safety than you guys ever will. Does that make sense? And your grandkids will probably do more than you do. Does that make sense? Because it's a generational shift. It's hard teaching an old dog a new trick. And you guys all know that. And that's the farmer's biggest issue, teaching an old dog a new trick. Does that make sense? So what we do is we allow generations, 2 or 3 generations to pass, and we change the generations. Does that kind of make sense? And that's why people were freaking out all about this. And it's not politics whatsoever. It was just about who's getting paid out, and long-term disability is actually what it's about, right? So think about that guard. You work through the process. Think about this tank. Put handrails up. That's engineering. Does that make sense? This guy over here should be taught to what? Park his truck properly. out of gear, park brake on. Does that make sense? That's administration. This guy should not even be there. Okay. I remember in the 80s, lots of farmers have died being crushed by these things, and because you're working hydraulics and it fails on you. Or if he has to work on there, what he has to install is an engineering what?
Yeah.
So, and a lot of the new trucks have a support that comes down when you work on them. Okay. So what I'm just trying to do is just make you stop and think, and I'm not sure if you've gone through it before, but they asked me to just kind of go through this and then maybe talk about Bill 6 if you have any interest or questions about Bill 6 or how it'll affect you. And that's where we're after. So you have any questions about Bill 6 or anything about what we're doing here?
So who's liable, like a clamp is installed at the factory like that?
That's you.
Still.
So under law, if you installed that, you knew about it, now you know about it. Here's how this works. If you didn't know about it, you can get away with it. It's hard to explain how that works in the courts, but you know about it now. Once you identified it, you must control it. Does that make sense? That's why I go through this. So if you know about that and a guy dies now, and they find out that you knew about that, or some other farmhand says, yeah, he said to us, we never fixed it. Now you are liable for that death. Does that make sense? Now, when it comes to WCB, you can't be sued. It doesn't work that way. No one sues, okay? Because we're guaranteed income. But the insurance companies behind you will start fighting over each other about who's going to pay that out. Does that make sense? And that's where they're going to be calling you in court. Now, I've been to court a few times with industry where they call me in and I have to prove that I trained the guy correctly. Does that make sense? If I can't prove it, because what's happening is the lawyer can't blame the company. The guy killed somebody. They can't blame the company. They can't blame the workers. So they're trying to blame somebody but their client. Does that make sense?
Right.
And that's the big part of safety, which you'll never see for 20 years down the road. So that's a long ways down the road. Because what happens, insurance companies in the next 20 years will change how they insure you based on WCB. Does that make sense? And and your insurance, your private insurance might go down, but your WC will go up based on the industry accidents. And the other issue you're going to have is as more accidents occur around the province, the WCB rate will start going where? You get two rates. You get an industry rate and you get your personal rate, right? And the industry rate goes up with the whole province. So as the farm accidents go up, that industry rate will rise. And that's where farmers will start going, well, what am I going to do about that? Well, the only way to do that is bring your industry rate down by enforcing safety rules and stuff like that. The liability, if you know, you have to correct. Does that kind of make sense? And that's the future of what you're going to be dealing with in the next 10, 15, 20 years. They're not going to be oil field based or construction based. It's going to be a different form of safety, but it's going to come your way, right? And that's what's going to kind of happen with that. Any other questions? Okay, well, what we're going to do is a little fire station demonstration over here. We just do it because why? I don't know. A lot of guys have seen fire extinguishers that hang on the wall. They collect dust, but they never actually pull them, or in school they do it for entertainment, and they never put a fire out. So I thought I'd bring it over here just for the heck of it. If you're scared, we'll help you out, okay? Go ahead. Now, like I say, wood burns, not really, not with diesel fuel on it. This is diesel, so it takes a lot of energy to get it going, and we will let it go. Who wants to go first? Who wants to try this? Somebody? Come on, you're all tempted. You? Give it a shot, sure, come on over. You might be retired.
Are you ready? I'll tell you. Hey, go.
And that's a really small. Woohoo!
It's stressful. We can put the big pan on.
No, that.